Assembly's live, so come subscribe. Your soul's in trial, or simply tired. Your soul medicine, it gets revived. The warrior line, soul tribe. Assembly's live, it's friendly vibes. Your soul medicine will give you life. You're a warrior, let's get this right. Warrior line, soul tribe. Assembly's live, so come subscribe. Your soul's in trial.
The Pitt. It's the Warline Podcast. Mary William, your host. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you see this YouTube. It's not a podcast, it's my YouTube channel. Thank you for liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. This morning for me, I want to talk to you about what I just seen. First of all, I want to thank my dear friend for introducing me to this show. She knows who she is. I appreciate you. I thank you for being you. I thank you for introducing this show that me and my wife got to watch together. It's just something else, and I'm being deliberate today because it's so much I want to say, so much that needs to be said about a show like this, because it's these rare moments, and I thank God that I found out about it organically. It wasn't hyped and stuff like that, but it was a show that has built a huge following now, basically organically, not really with the bells and whistles that a lot of shows come out with, but just a friend that told me, have I seen this show? I said no, and I watched it, and I'm tremendously moved by it, tremendously touched by it. Last night they had its finale, The Pitt. Last night they had its finale episode, and that might be the greatest single episode I've ever seen on TV. And I'm not saying that as an exaggeration or for a hyperbole. I truly believe that me and my wife watched it together, and we were just in awe of the finale and also the whole season. The first thing I want to say about it, as they continue to season 2, I hope they continue with the one thing I loved about it wasn't Hollywoody. It wasn't all these musical scores and all this stuff that people talk about, or content creators and influencers talk about. This was great. It was just, in a word, simple, raw, just plain, and plain is beautiful. And we come against plainness, and we don't like plainness, but sometimes plainness is good. Sometimes simple is beautiful. We love to focus on the complicated, but sometimes simple is beautiful. The first thing that I want to say, I got a lot of thoughts, but The Pitt rips off the mask. It rips off the mask that many of us are not comfortable displaying anywhere. Some of it in our own homes. The vulnerability of people that has went through something very traumatic. And what I love about the show, it just didn't move on. It showed us the drama and the traumatic, but it also showed us the aftermath. And that's what I love about it. But the Pit didn't allow us to cover our eyes. Meaning, I mean by that is, you had the situation happen, and then you just move on to there's no processing, there's no dealing with it. There's just the next episode. And I think that's where we are in this country. We don't even get a chance to deal with the trauma of life, the trauma of what's going on, the trauma of people losing their job, the trauma of people dealing with all these things that's going on, losing their income, losing their retirement savings, losing all this stuff. We just move on to the next thing without processing. And what The Pit does, it showed us, they had a big event. It was I don't want to have no spoilers here. If you're looking right now, I'm talking about spoilers, so you can stop if you haven't seen it. This is spoiler territory. They had a big event of the shooting, and they had all these people, 112 people get shot and killed. And then many times shows will just, okay, let's just move on. We have this, Avengers superhero type mentality in these shows, but The Pit rips off the mask and show I'm not going to show you just the highlights or just the action scenes. What I'm saying, I'm going to show you after the action scenes, what happens after the action, what happens after the trauma, what happens to the caregivers the life givers, because life givers give life. And when life is taken from you, you need a restoration, you need a restoring, you need a renewing, you need a refreshing, you need a processing. And the pit doesn't allow us to cover our eyes. All these people, these doctors and nurses and workers who did this, going to go home, but what they experienced will not be left behind. What they experience will go home with them, and there is an aftermath. There is an aftercare. Just because you don't do aftercare doesn't mean you need aftercare, because at some point it's going to come out. And so the pit, to me, was a television therapy session. And many people don't need therapy. Many people will shun therapy. Many people feel they never will go to therapy. Um, well, I mean, what are these people supposed to do? How do you handle this alone? Now, you might not call it a therapy, but what is it? So you just supposed to have this, and you supposed to deal with this traumatic, basic combat zone event, because that's what it was. It was basically a combat zone event when you have this level of shooting and killing and this level of wounds. So you just move on to the next thing. And the pit shows us no, we don't move it. And the question is, do everybody have the space to do that? Is it appropriate? I went through a similar situation when I suffered a great loss. And when I went to school, the class, the next thing, I was trying to be hard. I was trying to be professional. I was trying to be the teacher. I was trying to do my job. I was trying to have this mask on, if you will, to not show my vulnerability, the intense pain that I was going through. And I'll never forget it. And I tell the story all the time. And this was in class, and I was trying to teach, and I was trying to do my job, and 15 minutes into the class, my students raised their hand and said, "Hey, Chief," they call me Chief. "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, nothing. Oh, nothing is wrong. I'm good." I go on. 10 minutes later, they raise their hand. They say, "Chief, what's wrong?" I say, "Hey, what's wrong with y'all? What's going on with y'all? What's wrong? Y'all tripping, But I'm good. Let's move on. I'm good." 10 minutes later, they raise their hand again, stop me. They say, "Chief, what's wrong?" And I'll never forget that moment, because it was so powerful. I was dealing with people that's very young, but they knew. They felt my spirit. They knew, because you people know you. They can know it, but especially children. Don't lie to children. That's the worst thing you can do. You lose your credibility and it's over. But they just knew. And then I finally said, "Okay, y'all not gonna let me go on. Y'all not gonna let me play the professional. Y'all not gonna let me keep my mask on." So, not physically, but I took the mask off. I said, "My mom just passed away." And in front of those kids, I broke down and cried. Violate every tenet of professionalism. Violate everything that I'm supposed to do. But you know what? I didn't care and they didn't care, because I was human. And I was vulnerable, shed tears before those children, because that's what I needed to do. Can we do that when Robbie was at the end of the shift, when he broke down? He wasn't supposed to do that. Are we safe to do that in society? Not really. But what was wrong with it? It was a human reaction. You just dealt with 112 people. 6 of them were killed. He worked on one, the 17-year-old daughter, till he just couldn't work no more. So you just move on. He was supposed to have been smiling and happy, and we're professionals and the front. No, the pit to then allow us to cover our eyes and see that it wasn't just the next episode. Let's move on to the next shift. No, we have to process this. Um, I mean, it stands toe to toe with the great shows of all time. The earlier in the season, the honor walk, where the kid giving the donor. I mean, we don't see that, and that's what I mean about the pit don't allow us to cover our eyes, because many times we know things are happening, but we don't want to see it. We want to cover our eyes, or we want to divert our eyes. We don't want to see that, or we might hear this, but we don't want to see it. Um, the donor walk was just so touching, as they stopped everything and honored this human being who was losing his life, and in his death he was given life, or giving people the opportunity for life. We hear about it, organ donor, but that's just a generic saying. But when you see it, when you see the visceral reaction of the pain of the people going through the loss, an organ donor is a loss. In many cases, a tremendous loss. Yet they're given life as they're losing. This is the essence of humanity. Can we be vulnerable? Can you, joy and pain exist in the same person? Can we, everybody loves to see our joy, but who wants to see your pain? Because as a human being, you deal with pain. You're going to suffer. You're going to shake hands with grief. And it'll always be death. But in one way or other, you're going to shake hands with it. Can we be vulnerable? Do we have a space? Are we safe in our society to be vulnerable? It's something. The bench scene was so powerful, when the writing was so good, when Dr. Abbott basically just took off his artificial leg and just sat on the bench. Nobody went crazy. Nobody lost it. As he rubbed his leg, because obviously the pressure on his leg, really probably was swelling up. What a beautiful scene. What a beautiful reveal that this man who lost his leg was still so productive in life by saving lives. And it was just tremendous. And it's just tremendous in so many areas. And I just want to bring home, for people who suffering silently, suffering alone. On one more point, I'm sorry. When I love the therapy scene, the therapy session. He stopped there because I hadn't jumped off the roof. It again reminds me of something personal, when I got to that point that I was not dealing with the aftermath of something I had dealt with decades ago. And it reminds me of what my wife said: enough is enough, and we're going to get some help. It was in the midst of death. It was in the midst of death and destruction of COVID that she said that we're going to get some help. And I'm thankful for that scene, because mental health and therapy is so still stigmatized, and nobody wants to say anything. Everybody wants to sneak off to the doctor and take their mental health. Who sneaks off and get their sugar levels checked? Who sneaks off and get their blood pressure checked? Who sneaks off and get their vitals checked? But when it comes to mental health, when we come to our mental health therapy, we got to sneak off to do it. So I thank God for that scene, because that scene is needed. Because we need to break the stigma of getting help. We need to break the stigma of people can't be vulnerable when it's very horrific situation that many of us cannot deal with. We cannot handle, period. These emergency workers, I believe they're the level of military work. They should be compensated. They should be taken care of at a level, because that is work that everybody can't do. And I know this because It's people. They talk a lot. The keyboard warriors, they talk a big game. But when they put in a situation like this, when they put in basically a combat zone situation, well, they can easily stand up for a song, but they'll fold like a shotgun when it comes to real horrific things. And so I thank God for this show. It was emotionally devastating, but it wasn't overbearing. You know why? Because they gave us time to process it. It wasn't emergent. Every point they gave us time to process what we were dealing with. And then in the end, Dr. Mel going and being with her sister. Dr. Santos, who had a great arc, helping Whitaker, who's unhoused. It reminded me of the unhoused man that they said earlier. He said homeless. They said unhoused. Beautiful writing. Dr. Abbott and Dr. Robbie going together, walking away together. It was just beautiful and human, and it uncovered our eyes, which we needed. In a moment like this, it's something we needed. That even though we're going through a lot, that it is safe. Grief is universal, but how we handle it is unique. The Dr. Mohan, I think Mohan was so still hyped up, and then it finally hit her. She said the adrenaline gonna wear off as it finally hit us. What has hit you? What has hit us? What do we need to get some aftercare for that we just set aside? And I close with the final scene. I love the final scene where they show Dr. Robbie walking in the park, going home. But you know, what he's left behind has not been left behind. Everything is going with him. What a beautiful ending to one of the most beautiful seasons of television that I've ever seen. They did that. Thank you, Pitt. Thank you, my dear friend. I'm not going to call her name because I know she won't her name called. But I thank you. My wife thanks you for introducing us to this show. I don't know if it helped anybody, but it helped me. Thank you for taking the covers. Thank you for making us look at what we don't like seeing.
Warrior line, soul tribe, assemblies live, so come subscribe. Your soul's in trial, it's simply tied. Your soul medicine, it gets revived. The warrior line, soul tribe, assemblies live, it's friendly vibes. Your soul medicine will give you life. You're a warrior, let's get this right. Warrior line, soul tribe, assemblies live, so come subscribe. Your soul